Thailand, the land of smiles. Or so the promotional literature tells us. Well, there's certainly plenty of cheerful faces to go around, but the seductively agreeable disposition of this dazzling Southeast Asian kingdom goes well beyond the tourist industry's depiction of shiny, happy people. The photogenic allure of a deeply Buddhist culture is all around. Its relics, its monuments, its temples, and its monks. The exuberance of indigenous fruit and spices, which dance riotously across every taste bud. From the jungle-clad mountains and paddy fields of the north, to the coconut, palm and sand-fringed tropical seas of the south, the colour, the light and the heat soak right through you. In fact, sensory overload is a hazard at every turn. And nowhere more so than in Bangkok, Thailand's chaotic metropolitan hub, and surely one of the world's most vibrant and ravishingly absorbing human melting pots. Everywhere is teeming with life. On the Chao Phraya River, the constant coming and going of water buses and tourist boats creates a slopping greyish-green swell, which bounce the landing pontoons around with a grinding metallic squeal, while boat boys supervise the comings and goings with a series of multi-pitched whistles. On the street, the traffic fumes, which by late morning are already forming a sickly yellow smog overhead, catch dryly in the throat, and the humid air stews with a cocktail of frying garlic, car exhaust, incense, and drains. But in a sultry, sprawling city whose late 20th century burgeoning never had time to even grasp what town planning or urban regeneration even meant, the madness is strangely beguiling. Of course, in common with cities across the Asian continent, caught up in the fast-flowing tide of increasingly global capitalism, the huge social and economic disparities in Thailand's capital are stark and inescapable. And it's a hierarchy that's even reflected by the urban topography. At the street level, countless narrow lanes hiss and clatter with food stalls and markets, while overhead the expressways and toll roads stomp across it all on great concrete stilts. And higher still, the SkyTrain glides its way from one spotless and automated station to the next, with the frequently gridlocked traffic left far below. All along the riverbank, and in various haphazard gaps between otherwise contemporary architecture, the modest wooden dwellings of the city's poor are loomed over by the soaring concrete and glass of multinational corporations, hotels, shopping malls, and luxury apartments. But whether it's kickboxing in back-alley gyms, James Bond-style white-knuckle rides hanging onto a tuk-tuk, or gambling on the street with bottle tops for draft pieces, there's an entertaining edge to it all, of life being lived raw, defiant, and opportunistic. And in general, it all seems to work. In such an unstructured, spontaneous environment, people, regardless of their status, are relying on each other to survive. So, buying, selling, eating, and getting from A to B, the only activities that ever seem to be going on here, are very much a hands-on business, based on alertness, compromise, quick wits, and a tacit acknowledgement of mutual dependence. We, it seems, generally prefer to cocoon ourselves with technology and rely on state-imposed rules, rather than negotiate or interact as individuals. And for those who think West is always necessarily best, there's an irony here. Some transport chiefs in the UK are now hatching schemes to remove traffic lights in certain road configurations on the basis that the enforced cooperation between road users involving eye contact and mutual acknowledgement will raise awareness, improve manners, and thereby make the public highway a safer place. And watching the Bangkok traffic from the vantage point of a footbridge is certainly an impressive demonstration of this principle. In fact, Simply being immersed in the general tumult of the city brings a refreshing realization that there are real and legitimate alternatives to the way we do things and live our collective lives in the West. Yet, for all its popularity as a holiday destination for hedonists, Thailand remains yoked to deeply conservative institutions. A spell as part of the Sangha, or monkhood, is Buddhism's equivalent of national service, while the affection reserved for the octogenarian king is almost papal in its unquestioning reverence. With even public shows of affection frowned upon, it's fair to say that Thailand has acquired its reputation as a facilitator of vice, despite, not because of, its laws governing drugs, prostitution, and gambling. Still, for all the obvious attractions of an organised itinerary, and despite the abundant opportunities for a safely packaged tourist experience, we tried to avoid the easy way of doing things.
These are the clothes we've been forced to wear to access the palace.
But a one-day coach trip to some historical sites north of Bangkok, with tour guide, Audi, and some textbook Americans on vacation, was a notable exception.
I promise you, you're two gonna be alright. Okay. Trust me, trust me, trust me. But this, okay?
In Ayutthaya, the Thai kingdom's once thriving capital, and now an array of decaying temples being slowly reclaimed by jungle, we stopped short of climbing onto elephants. But at Bang Pa In, site of an earlier king's whimsical and extravagant country residence, we capitulated to the status quo and allowed ourselves to be bundled into a golf buggy for what, given the time constraints of a typically whistle-stop tour schedule, became a wacky racist-style circumnavigation of an otherwise tranquil and dignified palace complex. But such strictly regimented holiday-making barely troubled us again. In Bangkok, our small guest house took us down an alleyway and adjacent to the neighbourhood mosque, from where the muezzin's call to prayer roused us each morning in the pre-dawn gloom. We were lucky enough to have friends in Bangkok, and over dinner, Savvy's native cultural knowledge exposed our tour guide's modest pretensions as bogus. A long pinky nail, we learned, is a status marker, showing that the hands are not required for manual labour. We were now glad we hadn't tipped him. And to our further amusement, our taxi driver the following day was flaunting a pointed digit of his own. Making the city of Chiang Mai our northern base, we hired bikes and cycled off into the province's remoter areas. We encountered hill terrain and temperatures, which makes the Pyrenees in June seem like a church outing. With our bicycle adventures completed, and we did have one or two, we took to a scooter, which, in the maelstrom of the provincial capital's traffic system, was no less challenging. Down in the south, our survival seemed less compromised, although the catamaran crossing over to Koh Tao was rough enough for some English girls to attempt a mutiny. Our selection of snorkelling sites was sometimes poorly judged, and a supposedly short foray through the jungle on a dirt road half washed away by the rainy season was longer and tougher than it was meant to be. But with a sea kayak to play with for a day or two, the Andaman coastline threw up some unexpected treats. Through a combination of curiosity, the vagaries of fortune, and some downright poor planning, we returned home with our fair share of escapades, and hairy though some of them were at the time, we wouldn't exchange them now for 1,000 hammock